name, Ms. Sutter, you can hear me?
Yes, I can, Your Honor.
Okay, excellent. I'll start with Paul Holt.
Mr. Holt. Mr. Earl. Yes. Chair.
Are you Paul Holt?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. On the record in the matter, the people of the state of Michigan versus Paul R.J. Holtz. Counsel appearance.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Assistant Public Defender Lauren Sutter appearing today on behalf of Mr. Holt for the purposes of arraignment.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. Today's the date that's set for an arraignment. I have here a felony complaint. It alleges that on or about June 20th, 2022, at the area of Vernon Ave and Wildwood Ave in the city of Lansing, Ingham County, state of Michigan, that you did allegedly contrary to law commit the act and count one of stolen property, receiving and concealing a motor vehicle. It alleges that you did buy, receive, possess, conceal, or aid in the concealment of a moped, a stolen motor vehicle, knowing or having reason to know or reason to believe that the motor vehicle was stolen, embezzled, or converted. Now, this was done contrary to MCL 750.5357. This is a felony, and the maximum penalty is 5 years and/or $10,000, or 3 times the value of the motor vehicle, whichever is greater. To impose a fine of 3 times the value, the defendant must admit the amount, or it must be determined by the trier of fact. The court may order reimbursement to state or local government for expenses incurred in relation to this incident, including but not limited to expenses for emergency response and prosecution. There's a count 2 of police officer fleeing 4th degree under the penal code. It alleges that being the operator of a motor vehicle to whom was given a visual or audible signal by hand, voice, emergency light, or siren by Officer Jake Ellis, a police officer who was in uniform, and the officer's motor vehicle was identified as an official police motor vehicle, acting in the lawful performance of his or her duty, directing the defendant to bring his motor vehicle to a stop, did willfully fail to obey such direction by increasing the speed of the motor vehicle or attempting to flee or elude the officer. This was done contrary to Michigan Compiled Law 750.479A12. That's a felony, and the maximum penalty is 2 years and/or $2,000 in fine. Secretary of State shall suspend operators or chauffeur's license, and for a vessel privileged to operate shall be suspended for a period not to exceed 5 years. You understand the charge and the maximum penalties associated with those charges?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Holt, you have the right to be represented by counsel. You are represented by the Public Defender's Office today for the purposes of your arraignment only. You have the right to have an attorney with you at each stage of the criminal prosecution, and you have the right to have an attorney with you if you're questioned by law enforcement. If you cannot afford to hire an attorney, but you economically qualify, an attorney can be appointed at the expense of the public. Do you understand that right, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is he requesting court-appointed counsel?
He is, Your Honor.
Mr. Holt, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say and anything you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to plead guilty. You can plead not guilty, or you can stand mute. You have the right to proceed to preliminary examination within 21 days of today's date. At the time of examination, you have the right to have the prosecution establish their burden of probable cause. So they need to provide sufficient evidence to establish that there's probable cause that a crime was committed and probable cause to charge you with that crime. Do you understand that right, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
You have the right to be considered for pretrial release from custody. You have the right to have a trial in this matter, and you have the right to have a jury trial. At the time of trial, you have the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. You have the right to remain silent and not have silence be used against you. You have the right to question or cross-examine any of the witnesses the prosecution intends to call. You have the right to call your own witnesses or present evidence that you believe would further defense to the charge. And you have the right to have the prosecution prove each element of the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you have any questions about those rights?
No, ma'am.
You're currently scheduled for probable cause conference before Judge Tony Flores on July 1st, 2022 at 9 o'clock in the morning. That will be via Zoom, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you have a preliminary examination before Judge Flores, currently scheduled for July 8, 2022 at 8:30 in the morning. Did you get a copy of your notice to appear?
Yes, I did.
Okay, your examination will be in person and not via Zoom.
Okay.
Are you currently employed, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are you employed?
Metro Industries.
Can you repeat that for me, sir?
Metro Industries.
What do you do there?
I do casting. I work with cast iron.
What's your home address?
1920 Rex Street, Lansing, Michigan, 48910.
And your phone number?
Area code 678-698-7468.
For the purposes of his arraignment today, is he entering a not guilty plea?
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay, the court will enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf. Okay, you can address bond at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor. I did have a discussion with Mr. Holt this morning regarding these charges. He also expressed to me that he is in quite a bit of significant pain right now. He's recently recovered from MRSA due to a foot infection, and he expressed to me this morning that his foot is feeling hot and swollen again. So I do believe he's in need of some fairly urgent medical care regarding that infection. He is employed, as he said, in the area. He's working at Metro Industries, although he has had to take a 4-week leave of absence as a result of this recent medical condition. He does have family in the area, including his wife, who also works with him at Metro Industries, and their 3 children, which they share in the home. I do understand the nature of these charges. However, none of them involve any assaultive allegations against another person. And so given what I believe is Mr. Holt's fairly urgent need for medical care and what I've already stated, I would request a personal recognizance bond be set for Mr. Holt. Thank you.
Mr. Holt, are you currently on probation or parole?
Yes, ma'am.
Which one?
Probation.
Out of which court?
Clinton County.
Okay, and are you on bond right now for something?
Yes, I am.
It's out of 29th Circuit.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I've reviewed his prior criminal history, which is relatively extensive. The defendant's also on probation currently, and is out on bond right now. Although the nature of the circumstances are not assaultive, one of the charges by nature indicate a concern for his return to the court. We missed court in the past, sir?
No, ma'am.
Grant the request for personal recognizance bond. Bond will be set at 2,500. Personal recognizance. Mr. Holt, you need to make sure you appear to court for all of your future court dates, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
While out on bond, you're not to engage in any assaultive or threatening behavior. You're not to use, purchase, or possess any drugs or alcohol unless you have a valid prescription. Not to travel outside the state without prior approval of the court. Not to possess a firearm or any other dangerous weapon. You need to report to pretrial services within 48 hours. You need to report to them weekly, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any questions about your bond conditions?
No, ma'am.
Any additional matters for the record?
I have nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, you're all set, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Jason Michael McComb.
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you okay, you're Jason Michael McCombs?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, we're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Jason Michael McCombs. Counsel appearance, please.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Assistant Public Defender Lauren Sutter appearing today on behalf of Mr. Combs for the purposes of arraignment.
Thank you, Mr. McCombs. Today's the day set for arraignment. I have before me a felony complaint that alleges that on or about June 20th, 2022, at the area of 1010 River Street, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, you did allegedly in count one commit the act of breaking and entering a building with intent. It alleges that you did break and enter a warehouse located at 1010 River Street with the intent to commit the crime of larceny therein, that this was done contrary to Michigan Compiled Law 750.110. That's a felony. The maximum penalty is 10 years. There's a count two, police officer assaulting, resisting, obstructing. It alleges that you did assault, batter, wound, resist, obstruct, oppose, or endanger Officer David Dallin, a officer of the Lansing Police Department, that the defendant knew or had reason to know was performing his duties contrary to MCL 75081D1. That's a felony. Maximum period penalty is 2 years and or $2,000. A consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement or under MCL 750.81D 6 for another violation arising from the same transaction. There's another count 3 of assault or police officer assaulting, resisting, obstructing, alleges that you did assault, batter, wound, resist, obstruct, oppose, or endanger Officer Zachary Johnson, a police officer of the Lansing Police Department that the defendant knew or had reason to know was performing his duties, and that this was done contrary to MCL 750.81D1. Again, that's a felony. 2 years and or $2,000 is the maximum penalty, and a consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement or under the law if another violation arising from the same transaction. Do you understand each of the charges read there and the maximum penalty associated with each charge, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. You have the right to be represented by counsel. You are represented by Ms. Sutter today from the Public Defender's Office. You have the right to have an attorney with you to represent you at each stage of the criminal prosecution. If you cannot afford to hire your own attorney, you can request to have an attorney appointed at the expense of the public. Is he requesting
Yes, Your Honor.
appointed counsel?
He is, Your Honor.
Mr. McCombs, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say and anything you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to plead guilty. You can plead not guilty or you can stand mute. You have the right to proceed to preliminary examination within 21 days of today's date. At the time of preliminary examination, you have the right to have the prosecution establish that there is sufficient probable cause that a crime was committed and sufficient probable cause to charge you as a defendant who committed the crime. Do you understand your rights so far?
Yes, Your Honor.
You have the right to proceed to a trial in this matter, and you have the right to have a jury trial. At the time of trial, you have the right to remain silent and not have silence be used against you. You have the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. You have the right to cross-examine any witness the prosecution intends to call. You have the right to call your own witnesses or present evidence that you believe would further defense to the charges being brought against you. You understand your rights so far?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you also have the right to have the prosecution prove each element of the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt. You're currently scheduled for probable cause conference before me, Judge Kristen Simmons. It's going to be June 30th, 2022 at 8:30 in the morning. And that's going to be via Zoom, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
You have a preliminary examination before me that'll be in person on July 7th, 2022 at 8:30 in the morning. Did you get notice to appear as well as Zoom instructions?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. For the purposes of his arraignment, how is he pleading?
At this time, I would enter a not guilty plea on his behalf, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. McCombs, are you employed?
No, Your Honor, I collect Social Security.
What's your home address?
1133 Linwood Street, Lansing, Michigan, 48915, Your Honor.
You have a phone number?
517-862-5721, Your Honor.
Okay, currently on probation or parole?
No, Your Honor.
You can address bond counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. I did have a conversation with Mr. McCombs and discussed these charges with him and did explain the importance of his court dates and being both timely and appearing for them. He reports to me that he has no prior failures to appear in court, so I don't believe he's a flight risk. He does have family connections to the area. That Linwood Street address he gives is where he lives with his parents, so he does have some deep community ties here. He does also inform me that he has fairly limited assaultive criminal history. I do believe I found in our files that there was a previous resisting and obstructing charge as well as these cases here. However, Your Honor, I would still request a personal recognizance bond be set for Mr. McComb so that he can continue working with the public defender's office on how to address these current cases. Thank you, Your Honor.
We do have here before the court one count of a breaking and entering with the felony, which is a felony maximum penalty 10 years. But then we have two counts of assaulting, resisting, obstructing an officer, which by nature of the allegations would be assaultive. He, as indicated by you, Ms. Sutter, he does have some prior assaultive convictions on his criminal history. I don't necessarily believe there's a flight risk, but I do believe there is some threat to the public safety. I will grant a request for personal recognizance bond, but I will do it with GPS tether. Mr. McCombs, you need to make sure you appear to all of your future court dates, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
While out on bond, sir, you're not to engage in any assaultive or threatening behavior. You're not to travel outside the state without prior approval of the court. You're not to possess a firearm or any other dangerous weapon.
Yes, Your Honor.
You're not to, thank you, you're not to use any alcohol or drugs unless you have a valid prescription. Do you have any questions about your condition so far?
No, Your Honor.
You need to report to pretrial services within 48 hours of your release, and you're going to report to them weekly, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
Bond will be set at $500 personal recognizance with GPS tether.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Do you have any questions, sir?
Not at this time, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any additional matters for the record, counsel?
I have nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. You're all set.
Thank you. All right.
Matthew Kirk Van Vieve. Okay, sir, did I pronounce that correctly?
I'm sorry.
Can you pronounce your last name for me?
It's Van Vibe.
Van Five, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We're on the record. We're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Matthew Kirk Van Five. Council appearance, please.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Assistant Public Defender Lawrence Sutter appearing today on behalf of Mr. Van Vive for the purposes of arraignment.
Thank you, Mr. Van Vive. Today is the date set for an arraignment, and I have before me a misdemeanor complaint. It alleges that on or about June 19, 2022, at the area of South Cedar Street and I-496 eastbound, which is in the city of Lansing, Ingham County, state of Michigan, that you did allegedly in count one commit the act of operating with a high blood alcohol content. It alleges that you did operate a vehicle upon a highway, that being South Cedar Street, while having an alcohol content of 0.17 grams or more per 2/10 liters of breath, contrary to MCL 257.6251C. It says, notice this offense resulted in damage to another individual's property or physical injury or death to another individual. This is a misdemeanor. The maximum penalty is 180 days and or $200 through $700 in fines and or 360 hours of community service and rehabilitative programs under MCL 257.625B5. Vehicle immobilization is mandatory with a prior under MCL 257.904D. Cost of prosecution, reimburse government for emergency response, and expenses for prosecuting defendant may also be ordered. You understand the charge and the maximum penalty, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Stand by. You have the right to be represented by counsel. You are being represented today by Ms. Sutter from the Office of the Public Defender for the purposes of your arraignment only. But you have the right to have an attorney with you at each stage of the criminal prosecution. And you have the right to have an attorney with you if you're questioned by law enforcement. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if you cannot afford to hire your own attorney, you can request to have an attorney appointed to represent you at the expense of the public. Is he requesting court-appointed counsel?
He is, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Van Vive, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say, anything you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to plead guilty, or you can plead not guilty, or you can stand mute. You have the right to proceed to a trial in this matter. You have the right to have a jury trial. At the time of trial, sir, you have the right to have the prosecution prove each element of the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt. You have the right to question any witness that they call, or cross-examine any witness that they call. You have the right to call your own witnesses or present evidence that you believe would further a defense to the charge. You have the right to remain silent at trial and not have silence be used against you. And then you have the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. Do you understand those rights, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
For the purposes of his arraignment, how is he pleading?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
The court will enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf. Are you currently employed, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are you employed?
Dicker and Deal, secondhand store on Cedar Street.
What's your home address?
1707 South Cedar Street, apartment 1. And the zip code is 48910.
And your phone number?
517-528-0177.
You can address bond counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. I had a discussion with Mr. Van Vive this morning regarding these charges. He did express to me that he has no prior assaultive criminal charges and no prior failures to appear in court. I do understand the seriousness of this charge. However, it alleges no assaultive criminal behavior against another individual. As he said, he does live and work in the area, both on South Cedar Street. He actually rents that apartment from his boss at Dicker and Deal. So it's obviously quite important for him to maintain a good working relationship since it is both his source of housing and employment. Given all of that, Your Honor, I would request a personal recognizance bond be set for Mr. Van Vive. Thank you.
Okay, bond will be set at $500 personal recognizance. While out on bond, you're not to use, purchase, or possess any alcohol, marijuana, or controlled substance unless you have a valid prescription. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
You're not to engage in any assaultive or threatening behavior while out on bond. You need to make sure you report to all your future court dates on time. You're not to travel outside the state without prior approval of the court. You're not to possess a firearm or any other dangerous weapon. Do you have any questions about those conditions at this time?
No, ma'am.
Okay, your next court date will be a pre-trial. I'm not sure which judge that's gonna be before at this time, nor do I have a date, but that will be mailed to you at the address that you provided the court, 1707 South Cedar, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Any additional matters for the record?
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
You're all set, sir.
Thank you.
Christina Smith. Are you Christina Smith?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a few files for you here. On the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Christina Ann Smith, file number 20-03334 SM. Counsel appearance.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Assistant Public Defender Lauren Sutter appearing today on behalf of Ms. Smith for the purposes of arraignment.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. On this file, you're charged with the larceny, $200 or more, but less than $1,000. You were supposed to be present for a jury trial on March 21st, 2022, and you failed to appear. What happened?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Did you forget about your court date, or you just didn't want to come?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I actually did forget about it.
You say you did forget about it?
Yes, ma'am. At that particular time, I was kind of homeless at that time.
Okay. What's the address at 510 South Magnolia?
Yeah, she put me up for a good 2 weeks.
so this matter will be reset for a jury trial.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I have here people of the city of Lansing versus Christina Smith, file number 19-02746. This matter was previously set for a show cause because you owe a balance of $240. But you failed to appear for the show cause. This is a matter from 2019 for open alcohol. Are you currently employed, ma'am?
No, ma'am.
What's your home address?
Magnolia, South Magnolia, 510 South Magnolia.
Okay, so you're back to that address because
Yes,
you
ma'am.
indicated you were, okay.
Yes, you let me back.
I'll refer that to collections at this time. Okay. We have here people of the state of Michigan versus Christina Ann Smith, file number 20-00767 SM. And on this particular matter, ma'am, you were scheduled to be before the court on March 22nd for a jury trial for a domestic violence charge to which you failed to appear. Did you forget that court date as well?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, God, I keep going to these courts.
Are you okay?
Yeah, because I sworn I went through did jail time for that domestic violence here.
Okay. Well,
I could've
you
sworn.
had a PA 53 violation, a bond violation on this matter. It looks like you did plead guilty to that and you got credit. Well, you were sentenced to 7 days, credit 5.
Good.
But as to the underlying matter of domestic violence, you still have a case pending for that. It was supposed to have a jury trial on March 21st. It will be reset.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and this is the people of the state of Michigan versus Christina Smith, file number 19-04621 SM. And this matter, ma'am, looks like you owe a balance $525.85. This is for malicious destruction of property less than $200 from 2019. I will refer that to collections and you can discuss repayment on that with them as well. Counsel, did you want to address bond?
Yes, Your Honor, just briefly. I did speak with Ms. Smith this morning. I do understand that there are a series of failures to appear in court here today, or in the past. I apologize. I I have stressed to Ms. Smith the importance of keeping straight her court dates. I do believe both of those missed jury trial dates were from the same day in March. So we discussed the importance of being able to appear at court hearings and the need to not let those slip her mind. I do understand that there's a series of missed court dates here. However, none of the underlying charges, I understand, involve any allegations of violence. So I do not believe she's a danger to herself or the community. As she stated, she is now back in stable housing at that South Magnolia Street address. So I do believe she's in a better position to be appearing at court dates than she was back in March. And so I would request a personal recognizance bond be set for Ms. Smith. Thank you.
Okay, maybe you missed when I said it, one of the charges that she missed the trial for is for domestic violence.
I apologize, Your Honor. I did.
No problem. So I don't believe that Ms. Smith has the ability to return on her own recognizance. I'm going to deny the request for personal recognizance bond. Bond will be set in file number 20-00767 SM at $2,500. %. Bond in file number 20-03334 SM will be set at 1,010%. The other files are going to be referred to collections. Any additional matters for the record?
Nothing further, Your Honor, other than just to confirm that the jury trial dates will be given to us at a later date.
Correct. That will be set by Judge Buchanan's staff and will be given to her attorney. I believe she has court-appointed counsel on each of these matters. That's correct.
That's correct, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional matters for the record?
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. She's all set.